I found a build order where I rushed the church in the on the edge scenario on challenging. Additionally, I ramped up the difficulty by decreasing the starting materials to nothing. This means that building granary and storehouse first won't work in the setting, and I had to come up with the church rush. Besides the starting material setting change, I did a few other adjustments to the scenario setting, which are not relevant for the early build-up phase, but I like to go over all the important settings for the start before we jump into the build order. The relevant properties for the start are that we start in the winter, our starting supplies are set to nothing, our essential requirements are demanding, and that we have a high approval penalty. The winter condition that our supplies decay faster as long as they are not stored, and the starting supplies are nothing is giving us just enough resources to build a logging camp first. The demanding residential requirement, together with the high approval penalties, makes it difficult to convince our families to stay in our settlement and not to move out. Now let's jump into my example recording. I will let the recording run in the background where I show how I build up while I fade in everything I talk about right now. So I don't have to time my voice with the video and you still see everything in detail I did. Because we start with only 2 timbers, we are forced to build a logging camp first, and then assign the maximum numbers of workers to it, to get as much timber as fast as possible. After that, I directly rushed into the hunter camp, and left the homeless people tents untouched. If I would upgrade the tents at this point, the demands of our families would increase to a point where we can't handle them now, and they would decide to move away. A woodcutter's lodge is not necessary at this point. As far as I understood, in the starting camp, our families don't burn fuel, and therefore spending resources on a woodcutter's lodge would be a waste of our precious time that we don't have now. While the hunter's camp is under construction, I set up my market area and other buildings I will need later on. As soon the hunter camp was built, I quickly assigned 2 families to it to get the necessary food in, to keep my approval high enough for the next steps. After the food supply is covered, we need to cut some stones and planks in. For that, I switched families around the logging camp, saw pit, and stonecutter camp, until I had 20 planks, 10 stones, and 5 or more timbers. Having some extra timber is important since we must build and upgrade other buildings right after the church is done. To build a church, I removed the families from the saw pit, logging camp, and stonecutter to speed up the build. If you already have a food supply for at least 2 months, you can also unassign 1 family from the hunter camp. After the church is built, we should upgrade the homeless people tents to remove the homeless penalty. Since we already have a church, the extra demands from upgrading the tents are already covered good enough, so we can stay long enough above the critical approval point during the next steps. While the homeless people tents are upgrading to the workers' camp, we already have to work on our fuel supply and build a woodcutter's lodge. I directly assigned 2 families to it to speed up the fuel gathering. After that, I made a couple of mistakes, because I didn't pay attention to that we start with no regional wells. My plan was to build 2 burgage plots and buy for 1 chickens for eggs and for the other 1 goats for leather to sell. But because we start with nothing, we must go first for the trading post and sell something to gain wealth. The hide we got from the hunter's camp is a good starting point here. Additionally, I gathered some stones quickly, but perhaps selling planks would have been smarter or other stuff. Important is that we get some money in, so we can buy some goats and chickens. Here I accidentally misclicked and went for 2 chickens before my first goat. After I bought the basic livestock, I started to buy yarn to cover the clothing needs. From this, the game becomes more straightforward. The next challenge would be to get some additional families in, and after that to hold off the first raider wave. Another approach would be to simply let them destroy your village and rebuild after, but that is up to you to figure out for now. Until next time.